PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Each stage of womanhood has its unique challenges. That's why Highlands Naturals' new women's multivitamins are formulated with daily essential nutrients, plus targeted support for your life stage. PMS? Highlands has a multi for that. Pregnant and having morning sickness? That too. In the throes of menopause, we've got you covered. No matter what phase of life you're in, Highlands Naturals is here for it. Find your multi on Amazon or at highlands.com.
Much better. I'm using all my high-tech gear here to make
we only have the best, don't we? We've been doing this Zoom thing for a while now. So.
I know, I haven't done one in a while. I'm out of practice.
Make sure
last year now, when I had my new record out, I was doing one a day for about 4 months.
It's just so weird. Whoever thought we would be doing this?
No, I know. I mean, it's cool in some ways. Like, I got to do more stuff than if I'd have had to go places, you know?
Oh, sure.
But, yeah. Zoom.
So during lockdown, did you do a lot of writing, composing, or just basically doing these live virtual events?
Yeah, I did nothing creative during lockdown. It was not a good time for me. Like everyone, I mean, I played online shows every week. You know,
yeah.
I dug into my back catalog and learned tunes by other people and messed with them. But I didn't write a song. I mean, the last song I wrote was February of 2020. I recorded it in March. It was the last thing I recorded for my record. Like, the day everything shut down was the day I recorded that song. And, it was a bad time for being creative for me. I mean, some people, it was great. Everyone kind of assumed that I would write a lot of songs, you know, and I just couldn't. I was depressed. I was on the couch. There was no input really for, you know, life just became a monotone. Like, you know, writing songs is kind of living, you know, and if I wasn't out there living, there wasn't much, you know. I mean, the funniest thing about the record was a lot of the songs kind of had to do with those feelings that everyone was feeling during the lockdown. And
you could totally relate to it.
Yeah, and everyone just assumed I wrote those songs during this whole thing, but I was kind of having my own personal, lockdown before that. I was just going through stuff, you know, and it just happened to be the stuff everyone else ended up going through, but I was kind of going through it on my own.
Yeah,
when everything was normal. So that kind of worked out in that way, but I didn't have much to say beyond what I had just said. So anyway.
Yeah, so your input was coming, you know, like you're watching TV news and it's like, this is, you know, you're watching all the things that are happening in the world and, you know, everybody's saying that. So, I mean, that's probably...
It was, and it wasn't even, it was mostly just the situation was not conducive. Also, my wife was home, working from home, and I can't really write songs when other people are listening.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I gotta be free to come up with some really stupid shit and then discard it, but I have to come up with that first to get to the good stuff. And just not feel like I'm performing. If there's one person I know can hear me, I'm just instantly in performance mode, which is not the same as...
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Creative mode. Those are two totally different parts of the brain. So it was hard for me to just sit here and write tunes,
Yeah, basically go into seclusion and making sure that nobody could hear this. It's kind of how it is. I do writing and I'm doing video editing, things like that. So it's like, I don't need anybody else in this room.
No, it's too distracting. And also just knowing someone is here. Like I can't even practice when there's somebody in the house, I want to know that I can sound terrible without anyone hearing it yeah. Otherwise, I just will. I'll just lean on that which I can already do. Which doesn't really move you forward in any way.
So the resulting release is Good People.
Yeah.
And, that project took a little while to come together. How did it took more than just a year or so?
It was it took like 3 years. It was every record I make is usually a 3-year process, not because it actually takes 3 years of work to make it, but just you work when you're off the road. You got a little time here and there. And I mean, if I was able to take a couple of months off straight and the songs were done, I could just make the record, but it never works out that way. And I ended up making it in like 3 different cities anyway, so.
Yeah, that's cool. So LA, New York.
LA, New York, New Orleans, yeah. I just kind of, while I was traveling, I slipped in some sessions with the musicians I like to play with. So, yeah, it was not. A lot of it is how long it takes to have enough songs to make one. So in that case, the oldest of them was probably from 2018 or whatever, 2017.
How do you know when the album is finished? As far as how many songs you want to do and how long that album runs, is there a limit, or it's just like?
No, I don't know. I mean, I've never made one with more than 12 songs. Just because I remember when CDs came out.
Yeah.
Showing my age.
You had to fill like 80 minutes.
Yeah, right. Well, it wasn't that. It was when CDs came out, people started making really long records that had a lot of stuff on them that would have not made the cut had it been a vinyl record. Right. They would have had to choose 10 or 9 or whatever fit on that record. And I started, like, people I really liked were making these records with 15 songs on them, and still about 10 of them were great. And the other 5 was like, shit you would never put on your record, except now you could because it fit. And I was like, I don't ever want to do. I just remember back in the 90s thinking, I'm not going to just put filler on my record, although some people might view it as filler. I'm going to try to not put filler on my record just because I can. And even if it's good, usually it's just too long. Like, I don't need a 15-song album. Maybe unless it's live or something like that. So that phenomenon always turned me off. And then there's been a couple where I've just, so it's when I've got 10 good ones, there's usually like 1 or 2 covers. This new one had 3, where I'll take something and totally rework it into something that sounds like me. And then I know it's done.
Great title track to that too. I like the whole tinge in the arrangement and that. So you seem to have some help from your friends on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, the background singers were a huge part of that huge part of that. Levon, who died, we lost. She
Right.
had cancer. Yeah, she was a huge part of that song. Just like she really made it. She really made the whole record. I mean, she's all over it, and it was because of her that I really started to kind of feature the call and response, background singing, and
Right.
there's a few factors. Like I always had the background singers, and it always was kind of under rehearsed unless there was a longish tour with them, and but then a few things. Trissette, who sings with us, she's from Australia, and she would be coming out here to visit us on a visa, and she'd just live at our house for months at a time. So I finally had a captive person to rehearse, to like you just rehearse with until it was beyond good and just like this special thing. And my wife was one of them, so she was already here, and Levon just we all became really good friends, and she just would come over, and so we would just work on stuff even if there was no gig to work on it for. So it became it moved into a whole nother dimension of quality, and then it became something I wrote around, like I wrote with with them in mind, that's what this new record has, just a ton of stuff like that.
So were you always into that gospel tinged feel to it?
Yeah, I mean, I loved that stuff. Yeah, and when you have three, you can really do the call and response thing. You can have it's just massive.
Yeah, it's cool to have that positive vibe, which we so need right now. And just with all the divisiveness, everything going on, all the negativity, it's like
The thing about that song is, the most negative and divisive voices, I don't think are the majority. They're just the loudest.
Right.
They're the people that are the loudest and get the most attention because they're awful. And people are like, if this is awful, I must look because it's so awful. And so you start to think that everyone's awful. And I think I would kind of lean that way, except I travel so much to all over the world I've been, and 90% of people are wonderful and kind and helpful, and they don't want that, but yet we just get an earful of that every day,
They don't make the headlines, and it's much easier to look at a train wreck because that's a little more sexy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of the heart of that. And my wife, who does good deeds. It all started with her, but the broader message is just most people just quietly go through life doing good things, and you don't hear about it.
So true. Yeah. The bad ones get the headlines, and
but that's the world,
It is so true. So true. Now more than ever. How long have you been with your wife now? And she seems to be incredibly supportive.
Well, we got married in 2003, which was the 10th anniversary of when we met. Broke up for about 5 years and just really couldn't stay apart and got back together. So really kind of since 93. My God.
Still time, yeah. It
28 years, except with 5 years off in the middle. Or,
Amazing. So you have 9 albums. Any favorites out of that? Is it always your latest?
It's always the latest.
Yeah, it's always your latest baby.
The last 3 I'm really happier with than anything I've ever done. Like the Mojo Deluxe record, I do a lot of tunes from that, and that's held up for me. And the Christmas record I made was a real labor of love. Like I always wanted to make one, but I didn't want to just crank out a bunch of pap, People say they hate Christmas music because there's so much bad Christmas music, but it can be good, and I just tried to make it a little bit different and a little bit more introspective than just silly, and I don't know. Anyway, I tried. I was happy with it.
It's so easy to do a cover at Christmas. So many people do that. It's like,
Yeah, and then I like wanted. Yeah, the three of those were originals. The rest were covers. But I tried to choose unusual stuff, or if it was usual stuff, I tried to make it really different. But oh yeah, there's three songs that I wrote, and then there's one my wife wrote. Right?
cool.
It was kind of Christmas adjacent, you know, and that ended up being on there. So there was four kind of original, tunes, and then other stuff like I did this Michael Franks tune, which no one does, but it's a really great song.
Yeah, you got to do what you love and put your
Yeah,
own take on it. There is-
so and I did River, the Joni Mitchell tune. Everyone does that, but
Everybody does that, yeah.
I put a bunch of jazz chords in it,
Yeah, you got definitely with that one, especially put your own spin on it.
Yeah. Because especially something like that, you got to put your spin on it. Otherwise, what's the point?
It's like, yeah, that's one of the the perfect of all time. It's like, it's kind of like yesterday. I mean, like, how many people
Right.
covered that thing? About a zillion.
Yeah, and tons of people have done that song. But so I just changed it up, as much as I could.
Another good track, My Friends and I. How did that one come about?
Oh God, well that was a friend of ours. I mean, that song's probably 4 years old or whatever. So we were kind of all in me and most of my friends of my age group were all kind of entering our early 50s, which is just that time when, people so one of our friends got cancer at like 49 or 50.
When it starts happening, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right, yeah. My cat died,
Uh-huh.
and a friend of ours committed suicide. This all happened kind of all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, so it was just a cathartic thing to write about. And also just about that time, parents are getting much older and
We're losing them.
you're losing them. So it was just that. It all just kind of came out.
Yeah, so much we could relate to, especially in this pandemic time of total lockdown and
Right. Again, that song was
Depressing.
viewed as a pandemic song, right? Which I'm glad that people got something out of it, but it really came before all of that.
Well, and some of the covers, one of your favorites, John Fogerty. I saw John Fogerty. What an amazing act. I saw him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opening show back in '95.
Right. Before I was in the band.
Yeah. Gosh, very, very well done. Good version of that. Out of that entire catalog, why Bad Moon Rising?
Well, I think just because I kind of, like, out of the blue came up with this idea of, turning it into that's like a whole different song. And the other thing about that song is it's a very happy sounding song, with this great hook. You can sing along with that song for a million times before realizing how really dark the lyrics are.
Yeah.
They're just pretty hopeless and dark. And so I kind of was drawn to doing something musically that matched the kind of nature of the lyric, and just do something. And I played it with him a million times now, and I always loved his songs, and especially since working with him, I wasn't going to try to do it like he does it. You can't top that, So, and it's touchy, being in his band. You don't want to just do an imitation of, So I just really tried to take it in a radically different direction. So that song just kind of lended itself to that treatment.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be and so personal because you played it so many times with the artist. So
Yeah.
how did he feel about you covering that? And
I don't even know if he's heard it.
Oh, really?
I passed the record on, but it's not like we hang out.
Yeah, I'd be like,
he doesn't listen to stuff you give him.
Yeah, no, it's like
it's hard to explain. Yeah, so,
I'd feel kind of weird like that. Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever listened to it or nothing bad is. Haven't heard anything bad, so
Hey, no news.
I'm content to leave it at that.
Also, and a very early Fleetwood Mac song. So you must like that period. Is it like the?
Well, I like that song. I mean, all that was way like I knew in 1980 when I was 14, which is really about the time I even discovered rock and roll at all. Like I wanted to play classical. I was like deeply into classical music.
Oh wow.
Anyway, there was a live Fleetwood Mac record came out around that time. I probably heard it in 81 or whatever. And it was all the expected, Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks era stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then that song, which was totally unlike all the other ones. And I loved all the other ones, But I heard that, and I was, what is this song? I had no idea what it was. It was from a totally different, the blues band Fleetwood Mac era for the 60s, which I totally missed. I didn't know anything about that. And so all my life, and then eventually I learned what that was about and what, Peter Green and all that sort of thing.
Right. And
I always loved that song. And I always thought of it as something that I would never be able to play because it was such a guitar tune, And so finally, I just was like, what if I actually tried to play it on the piano? So I transcribed it.
Cool. Yeah.
And it lays kind of awkwardly on the piano. It's all this spidery finger shit because, like on a guitar, it's all here, right? But
right.
on the piano, there's like all kinds of stretching to do. Anyway, and I had to turn it. Anyway, I had to turn it into a thing, but I transcribed all that whole essential line, and just one of the great all-time riffs. And the lyrics are amazing. There's very few of them, but but they're amazing. Anyway, that whole thing was from that live record,
Yeah, with all the hits, but they bring out.
Yeah, because it was the only surviving tune from that era, and like in that live record, it was all, this was probably the Tusk tour or whatever, right? Late early 80s.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was just stuff from probably 75 through 80, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing on that record from previous to that, except for that one song. So, anyway, I love that song. I'm so glad. And it's become, by far, the most popular thing off that record. It's gotten a ton of airplay on Sirius XM, and it gets the most Shazams. It gets the most...
Yeah. Do you really pay attention to that kind of stuff? The numbers you get, or is it just like, hey, I just put it out there? I'm not really.
Yeah. I never used to look, but now there's an app where I can easily check my numbers. So I check my numbers from time to time. I mean, I had a radio promoter working on stuff, and a lot of airplay now is they'll play your tune, and if it gets they check the numbers. Like if it gets a lot of Shazams. Cool. They'll keep playing it, right? Because that shows concrete interest that they can track.
Right.
It used to be kind of people would call in or whatever, but now people Shazam, right? They're like, what is this tune? And they'll check the Shazams from when they played the tune and base further airplay on that, So that one got a lot. That's why.
Very, very cool. Who else has inspired you growing up besides Fleetwood Mac? In the Gen X era.
I mean, Billy Joel, of course. Grew up in New Jersey, right?
Wow.
Played the piano. Right. And I was also a big a Beatles fan. I mean, one of the first records I got, rock records, was Sgt. Pepper. This is like 11 years after the Beatles broke up, but that stuff's forever. Yeah, I grew up in the Gen X era and mostly listened to, classic boomer rock. That was like, I just I loved all this stuff from 10, 15 years before that, your older brothers and sisters were listening, or your uncle was listening, right? You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, totally.
Right, and that was the stuff I was into, and all the other kids in my high school were like. But there was stuff that we all, the early Gen X era. It was like there was no one yet our own age making hit records, right? No. Like in the 80s.
It would be a few years off.
They were all still older than us, right?
Right.
It wasn't really till Nirvana, like,
right.
Those people were actually my age, right? But before that, so you were kind of, even the artists that were having the hits then were older than us.
Oh, yeah. It was Billy Joel and John Paul McCartney.
Yeah, right. And, of course, Springsteen, was a huge, right? Joe Jackson, all this stuff,
Yeah, Springsteen was basically religion in Cleveland when I was growing up.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, Cleveland.
Oh, my gosh.
Had a big cult there before he was big. I just remember, he was obviously a popular artist, but he still felt like a cult artist up until Born in the USA, when it really exploded.
Oh, I never thought it would go that far, but I was just shocked when I first heard that. And the station WMMS played the entire album like a day before it was released.
Right.
What is this? It was incredible. It went way big.
Right. But before that, we still felt like he was ours. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like it was
right.
It wasn't like every kid in school was into Springsteen. It was like certain kinds of weird outsider kids like me and my friends were into Like I had this friend, she was 3 years older than me. So she was a little bit more aware of, the late 70s than I was. And I didn't know anything about Springsteen. This would have been 81 or something like that when The River was a new record, right?
Right.
And she gave me all her Springsteen albums and the bootleg of it was the Winterland 77 bootleg, right? That was a right? So she had one on vinyl, right? It's like a 2 record.
Yeah.
Hand printed, right? That was, so she gave me those. She's like, you can have these for a week. You got to give them back, And so that's when I had full immersion. I was like, oh my God. And I, sat in my room and just listened to those records over and over again.
So, and that's really cool. Were you already into piano? Did you take lessons growing up?
Yeah, I had classical. That's why I wanted to play classical music. I was being trained for it,
Oh, wow. Just like Billy Joel, who was
exactly. That was what I liked about Billy Joel. I was like, okay, I could tell this guy played classical music, and he just applied it to. But there's song. But I loved the idea of songs and communicating with people that way, and the energy of rock and roll. The whole thing appealed to me. But before that, I was. Yeah. I played the piano when I was 16. Anyway, I was. I really had very little awareness of pop culture up until about that time. I was an only child. I read a lot. I didn't have any friends really until high school. I was just a super nerd, but I didn't mind. Like I played classical piano and composed these little classical pieces when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old. And so I kind of came to everything backwards. Like I didn't really appreciate a decent 3-chord rock and roll song until I was 17 or 18,
Yeah. You really did.
That's why I loved Sgt. Pepper, right? Because it was I mean, it was all over the map musically, which I love. I love diversity, but it all hung together, right? Like every track was completely different. And there was a lot going on musically. Like the Beatles, were totally untrained musicians, but yet still were able to access all of this kind of sophisticated stuff just by chance or ear or whatever, however they came up with it. And, coming from my background, it kept me interested.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing how. And I remember first discovering the Beatles. I knew about Wings a little bit before. It was kind of like at the same time. I didn't know the same guy who was in Wings was also in the Beatles. It was like our generation,
right? Yeah,
all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I was amazed between my sister, who's about 7 years older than me, got the Red album. That compilation and the Blue album, and seeing the comparison, I was like amazed how they were able to reinvent themselves and keep themselves.
Oh yeah, all over a 6-year period. People that actually grew up with the Beatles got that linear experience of every year they changed everything, amazing. And subsequently, because they were so influential, changed everything around them. Like you can't underestimate the influence they had, even on people now who don't even know who they are. The way they made records, the way we make records now could be traced back to the way they made records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, best band
ever. For them, making a record was capturing a performance. You went in, you played live. You might have overdubbed a couple of things, but using the studio as an instrument, going beyond what a live band could actually play and making records as we know them, they kind of started that.
Yeah. What was did you start going to concerts when you were in high school and beyond?
Yeah. Concerts.
Yeah. Did you see Billy Joel live like at Madison Square?
Yeah. Madison Square Garden, 1984. The day I graduated high school.
Yeah, I saw him on that tour as well. Yeah.
I went to that. It was the last day of the Innocent Man tour.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden. That was the first one.
Yeah, he was in the zeitgeist at that point. I mean, he was uber popular with the energy. The band was just probably the best. I'd seen him maybe 7-8 times, but
yeah, me too. Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, that was the first time, and that was like, it was peak. Not quite his peak piano playing. It was post motorcycle accident where he never quite
the thumb.
Yeah, with the thumb, right? Yeah, with the wrapped up thumb.
I remember
that. Before that,
yeah.
I had the DVD of the DVD. I had the VHS tape of Live from Long Island.
Long Island, right? I remember that.
Which was, I guess that was 1982, right?
Right.
And I watched that over and over and over and over again. My girlfriend worked at a pizza joint, and she'd come over after work, and we'd watch it.
Yeah. Them drinking the wine on stage.
Yeah, the whole thing, right?
I love it. Yeah.
It was just like, if you're from where we were from, it was you
get it.
So,
you get it.
Yeah. So, that was my first kind of exposure, and I just remember that being inspiring to me, because I was like, he's not cool, right? He's like getting by on talent alone. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I could do this. I could go up and play in front of people like that. I don't have to be cool,
Right.
I'm sure he didn't want to hear that, but but that was my takeaway.
Oh yeah, not the coolest. No, he didn't have the coolness, but it was like, he's with the supermodel.
He played piano, I was like, I play piano. I could. Yeah. Anyway.
Very cool. So flash forward, you were a huge Beatles fan, and you got to work with Ringo Starr. So how did that?
I did get to work with Ringo Starr. This guy Bruce Sugar, who he's an engineer, and he engineered one of my records. So I knew him from that. And he just calls me up out of the blue. I was in the middle of this horrible sound check at this venue, and the sound guy was really incompetent, and it was a show with a bunch of kids, right? And the kids were talented, but they didn't have mic technique. They needed somebody who knew what they were doing to be running things. You know what I mean? They weren't like seasoned pros who could adjust. So it was this non-ending sound check in which nothing. I was just so despondent, and I just get out of the blue. It's like, hey, you want to do a session with Ringo? And I'm like, are you shitting me? I got up and ran around in circles a few times. I said, yeah, man, what's the dough like, man? I don't do that. So, yeah, it was in his house, on a Monday or Tuesday or something like that. Went over there and cut a track. And he was there.
Nice.
Really nice guy. I think
he seems to be in good spirits. It really and
yeah, and he made you feel comfortable. I think the thing about being a Beatle is all these famous people that made their mark in the 70s, 80s, whatever. They all have a Beatles moment. Like almost every musician I work with of a certain age is like, oh, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I wanted to play. That was it for me.
Yeah,
they all have the same story,
right?
If they were around, if they were that, it was, I was before my time, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, so many people I've met. Yeah, I remember.
Right, they all have the same story, and so I think to people who are really famous, the Beatles are still like another dimension, and I think he knows that, But, while I was there, like Joe Walsh called and Steve Lukather called. Like, people were calling all day. He's like, Ringo! I'm like, he's just like, he's a guy. A friend of mine who's a huge Beatles fan, he's like, you have to get a picture of something like really normal and average at his house, so I can tell that he's human. So I'm in the bathroom, I'm like, this is Ringo's bathroom. None of this makes me look cool at all, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, yeah, I played on the Ringo track. It was lots of fun.
Cool. The Give More Love album came out.
Yeah, Give More Love. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, it'd be nice to be part of that all-star band. It's got people in that.
I know. Yeah, and he always changes it. But that was great. I got home in the afternoon after the session. I'm like, oh, there's some work I need to do. And I was like, I can't do any work. I just did a session with Ringo. So I just invited all my friends over and had a barbecue. I said, you're coming over. I just played with Ringo.
Does that get any better? Yeah, any better than that? It's like a thing. Wow. So New Yorker magazine called you the keyboard wizard?
Yeah, they did a blurb about a show I was doing and referred to me as a keyboard wizard. I'd always wanted to be. I love the New Yorker. I have a subscription,
Yeah, I did too.
And so that came out while I was on the road, and I came home and like the issue was sitting on the at the counter, and I found the article. I'm sitting out on the balcony with my wife, and I go, look, the New Yorker says I'm a keyboard wizard. And she goes, well, around here, you're just a guy in sweatpants that takes out the garbage.
Keep it real. Right?
That's my wife. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife.
That's the good
thing. Take my wife, please. Hey. Sorry. I find it easier to talk if I'm sitting at a piano. I don't have to be playing it. But, I used to, getting on stage was, I was like very painfully shy and socially awkward but I was never afraid to be on stage.
Yeah.
Right? It was like putting on my cape, had my piano crutch. I could do no wrong, So even now, like doing it, I can do an interview without a piano, but I just set up my Zoom on top of the piano, basically.
That's cool, because how does your writing process go? Are you starting to write on the piano and then lyrics come later?
Oh, yeah, there's no set thing anymore. It's more now working around that which I've already done. Like I used to have a method, but now usually lyrics come first, or a lyrical idea comes first. Because I kind of, unless it ends up being an instrumental, like I've done some instrumentals. Those things are just usually a product of sitting at the piano and screwing around and accidentally hitting a wrong note and finding out that that was cool and then working from there, you know. Yeah, now it's when you have a big enough catalog of stuff and you have the stuff you do all the time that you know people like. You know, I've often started to write a song that was competent and fine and good, but was kind of a rewrite of something I'd already done, you know.
Yeah.
And not quite as good. And now it's like, there's no point in this existing, so I'll abandon it. So a lot of it now is trying to get past myself. You know, I play in keys that are less comfortable to play in, so I don't rely on my chops, and I can do some flashy thing and get by, you know, that doesn't make for a good song. And just anything that will point me in a direction I haven't been in yet. It gets harder and harder, you know. The older you get and the more you've written, the harder it gets to just not repeat yourself, because, you know, there's no point in it.
Yes,
It's just going to be a lesser version of what you've already done, and nobody wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to play it. Like, if I have a choice between the really cool song that was the first one and the not quite as good but competent, you know, version of it, you know, which one do you think I'm going to do, right? So
right.
It kind of has to be something I want to play live. And then the other part of the process is 90% of the songs get played live before they get recorded. So, you know, and you can feel when you're connecting. Yeah. And you know when you're connected. It doesn't have, you don't have to hear applause. You don't have to hear anything. You can feel, you know, you can feel it in a room when you're really getting to people. It's a great feeling. And you can't describe it. Like, they're not, you just feel it.
Yeah.
So
everybody who's in Billy Joel's band says it's like, okay, when we pull out like an album release, just an album track, we could feel it from the stage. They want to hear the hits, and you could just feel the room just like totally change.
I know. Yeah, having a bunch of hits is hard. Well, hard, you know. I mean,
you're boxed in. Yeah.
Big rooms. I mean, I see it with John Fogerty, right? He's got a whole. He's got so many hits. He doesn't even do them all, right?
You can, yeah.
But when he wants to play something that's not a hit, you know, I feel like it gets a good reaction, you know, from the kind of the real fans. But, you know, there's a whole segment of people in the crowd that are just like, I don't want to. I want hits, you know.
Yeah. You could feel it.
You know, because musicians are creative. Like, you want to play a new song. You want to keep moving ahead and do. So you kind of, you know, if you have a lot of hits, of course, it's great. You're successful, but you have to accept, as time goes by, you have to accept that people just want to hear those tunes, you know. It goes from, you know, like any career of any length, you know, there's a whole period where you're putting out new stuff and everyone can't wait for your new stuff. And then your whole audience kind of reaches a certain age where they're just like, I don't want to hear new stuff anymore. Right?
Well, yeah.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
That's how it is with
the biggest thing I obviously haven't had any hits, but, you know, I've been around a long time. And during a pandemic, I was doing these shows online every week, and there's the stuff I actively play live, and I was like, I can't just keep doing that every week. So I'm asking, I had a kind of really hardcore group of people who watched every week, real fans. A lot of them had been like listening to me since the 90s, right?
Sure.
I mean, people I've met now in their 20s or whatever, and they're like, oh, my parents listened to you when I was a kid. I know all your songs. I'm like, oh, God. Jesus.
That's got to feel weird.
Wrong. So wrong. So you're 30 now.
That doesn't know. This shouldn't be happening.
These are like 20. We have a Celeste who sings with us. She's like 25, I guess 24.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
97. I'm like, every time I book a plane ticket for her for a tour date, I'm like, and put her birthday down. I'm like, no, people weren't born in 97.
I know. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember where I was.
A while before I accepted it. Anyway, they're asking for all these old tunes of mine that I don't play anymore, that I didn't think anyone cared about at all. Like, they were, and I'm like, geez, I really have I learned a lot from that about stuff that those tunes now had like a nostalgia factor to them, which is something I never figured in because they weren't hit songs, but they bought that record in 95 or whatever, first one I did, and they've been listening to those tunes since then. So it's all embedded in that lizard part of their, right? Like we all have that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have earworm.
Yeah, right. And it's just like it makes them feel something, makes them beyond just they like the tune, reminds them of a period of their life, right? All that sort of thing I never really thought about.
Can you do a little snippet from the 2018 song about the Grinch? That's I like that kind of a Randy Newman-ish kind of.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You're a nasty, rascal skunk. I don't think that's the first verse. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5 foot pole. Or whatever.
Yeah, I like that. It was kind of Randy Newman-ish kind of thing. I like that. It's very positive, but he's like, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Yeah, I always loved that Grinch cartoon growing up, and
yeah, that's so cool.
I loved Dr. Seuss. Like I had all the Dr. Seuss book. Like there was a monthly subscription. Like I got one a month when I was a kid. I had the whole set, and I loved that song. And in 2004, I had this show. It was like a multi-act show at a theater, the Colonial Theater in Keene, New Hampshire. And it was like a Christmas holiday show. So I went out there and I just wanted something to sell. I had no Christmas music recorded. So I wanted something to sell at that show, right? Because it was a big crowd. So I went in the studio, I had no money, and I recorded that tune and this other one that I wrote, the After Christmas song. Made like a little 2-song EP thing, right, which you could actually sell in 2004. And mixed it all in one day, got players in on as a favor, did it really quick, a couple weeks, a month before the show. Had them pressed up just in time. Anyway, I go out there, I did that. Then the tune was never really official. It was like on iTunes or whatever. Yeah. And no one paid much attention to it. And then I got this call out of the blue from some assistant, at Universal in 2018, 16 years later or whatever it was. And asking, saying, oh, we might want to use your version of the Grinch in this project we're doing. They wouldn't tell me what it was, so I sent them to my manager, and they wouldn't tell us what it was. They wouldn't tell us that they were actually going to use it.
With With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
They wanted stems, right? So I had, like, stems are the individual tracks, like the drum track, the piano. There's a lot of times, if they're using something in a movie or TV show, they might just use the instrumental part in a section and strip away the vocals, or they might just strip it down to the drums. And, they wanted to have options because turns out they were using it in a trailer, right? So they manipulate it in all kinds of ways and cut it up. But I didn't know that at the time. So they wanted stems. I'm like, Jesus, I recorded this thing like probably it was first or second generation Pro Tools,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I had the disc of the master tracks. I was lucky that I kept that, right?
Cool. Yeah.
The mix wasn't even that good. We remixed it because, it was done the day of the recording when I originally did it. So it was all very hastily done. But it came out great. The band was great. And I played this like little spinet upright piano and sang live. We cut the thing live. Anyway, we got out the old master tracks, went over to my producer's studio, and engineer's like, all right, we're going to open this up, but there's a 50% chance that it won't work, because it's so old, right? But it worked, because it wasn't tape, it was like early digital,
Yeah, your files and dealing with that. Yeah, I'm sure.
Pro Tools, which is the digital computer-based thing we all record with now, it was only about that time that it became kind of universal, maybe 2001, 2000. I remember doing the sessions in around 2000, 2001, and people were starting to use it, but you always hired a specialist. Somebody would come in and they knew how to work Pro Tools. Now every kid in their bedroom knows how to work Pro Tools.
Exactly.
It was a specialty thing that cost a lot of money, and you'd bring it in addition to the normal way you were recording, because you could fix stuff, Anyway, it was from about that era, So we opened it up. We said, and eventually they told me what it was for, and still wouldn't tell us if they were going to use it. A price was worked out, which was, definitely one of my best paydays.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, about a week before it went out, the check arrived. My manager's like, "We got the check. They're using it, right?" And then
oh, cool.
No one would tell me when. And I woke up one day and I went to Facebook or whatever, and tons of messages. I just heard you on the Grinch trailer on TV, and then all year, we ran for like a year, and people were like, people would be in movie theaters and they'd surreptitiously tape the trailer and it's like right on the screen, right? Anyway, it was good. That tune got a whole new life from that. And then I made the Christmas record because, it had momentum, and I'd been meaning to do it for years.
Yeah. Now, where did you record the Christmas record?
Oh, mostly here in LA.
In LA, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much all here in LA. And the Grinch and that After Christmas song we remixed. Those were from 2004. The rest, there was a couple of other random things I'd done a few years earlier. Well, most of it we did. That was 2018. I had most of the Good People record was done by 2018, save for 2 more songs. And I pretty much dropped that. I put it on hold, and we spent all year working on the Christmas record, and got it because there was definitely a deadline for that, right? Sure. And the Grinch thing was going on the whole time, and so I wanted to capitalize on it and get it out that year.
Yeah.
In 2019, I was on the road so nonstop, I barely get to finish working on my record. So we were all set to put it out in early 2020, and then
Bam. Yeah. Yeah. So back on the road now more, or is that starting to happen more?
yeah, the second half of the year, I toured quite a bit. You know, July and August there was a smattering of Fogerty dates, and then most of September I had solo touring with my band, all like Northeast makeup dates, and yeah, I went back and forth between my tour and Fogerty tour, and I worked pretty much nonstop.
A lot
Through
of touring.
December, yeah. So there's stuff coming up this year.
Awesome.
January
Yeah.
is tradition, but
Nice.
no.
You got like four touring bands? Is that still?
Oh yeah, I have I really have three. Yeah, four. Yeah, I haven't been to Australia in a while, but I have a great band there.
Oh, cool.
I have my Europe band, I have my New York band, and my LA band. So depending on where I am, and it was originally a money thing. Still is, right? You know, it's very expensive to take a band on a road.
Where you make the money.
Now I love all these bands. Like I would, even if I could probably eke out always taking one band somewhere, but I kind of like the different. You know, they all have a slightly different approach to it. You know, in the New York band, I've always included on a record. You know, on some tunes, just because it's a different band. Anyway, yeah. So I've got some. They all know my show inside and out. You know, it's not a pick band or anything like that. It's just
you got 4 different sets of Malonettes, backing singers.
Oh, the Malonettes are just only one set. You know, there's subs from time to time, but no, it's always that they go with. Yeah.
Sure. That's you have always understudies ready to people to.
That's the other thing too. Is you know, if I have players that I don't have to fly around from here, then it's more affordable to have the background singers, because once you have the background singers, you're talking about a 7-piece band, and that's a lot of right. But if the rhythm section is there already, you know, it makes it possible for me to have the bigger band, basically.
Is there a lot of equipment for you to set up with and to move around on tours? How much do you have?
Usually we use backline, you know, that either the band brings their stuff. I always try to go for venues that have real pianos, and I, you know, bring my pickups and put them in there and use the piano. You know, I really travel with gear. The Fogerty thing, we have all this gear, but it goes in trucks, and there's a crew, and that's a whole different world of, you know, money.
Yeah, people don't realize how many people are behind the scenes making the magic happen.
Oh yeah, like those guys do the real work, you know.
Oh,
like we show up for sound check at 3 or whatever, and they've been there since 6 a.m. setting up stuff, right?
Building stages.
Get on a bus and they go overnight on a bus. Yeah, they work hard, very hard. They love it, you know. I'm like, why do you do this? But they love the life. It's like the circus, you know.
It is.
I mean, it's for us too. I mean, it's hard enough traveling just as a musician and not having to do all that, you know, gear schlepping.
Yep.
Well,
it is a schlep. That's the key word.
Put in, you know, decades of schlepping gear and playing the gig, you know.
It's so true.
It's not like I never did it, but now I'm like, I really just, if I have to lift any piece of gear, I get really cranky, you know.
You've earned paid the dues.
You know, I'm 55. You know, come on, I'm moving gear.
So true. You come here to Atlanta, play at Eddie's Attic. Have you been here before?
I've played Eddie's Attic a bunch of times. Yeah, I'm playing Atlanta in. I'm doing Eddie Owens Presents.
Oh, up here on the road. I'm near Duluth.
Yeah, and that's in April. April. Yeah, April, I think 3rd. It's a Sunday. Anyway,
Awesome. Keep that on the calendar.
Put it on your calendar.
Yeah, it's downtown Duluth. It's we're about 40 minutes north of Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a music school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a workshop too.
Oh, cool. That's very nice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, Eddie's Attic I played quite a bit when he was there.
Yeah, and he did it.
Yeah, the 3rd. March?
Oh, in March.
No. April 3rd.
April.
Yeah. Okay. That was a really process for me to give that date out.
Tell the people.
April 3rd, Eddie Owens presents Duluth, Georgia.
Sweet. You like it there. Awesome. Well, it's been great speaking with you. I really enjoyed hearing your keyboard and just keep on touring. Hopefully more dates and things won't get canceled. And
I know, yeah, it's still weird, but hope for me it's happening. I don't have anything going on right now, so
I think the variants are getting weaker, and hopefully this will somewhat. It's going to be more like the flu, I think, be part of our lives. So that's hopefully we'll have to go to lockdown.
I got my fingers crossed.
Cool. Well, great hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Take care. Have a good one.
All right, I'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.